I've become fascinated with how super rich people avoid paying taxes. It's fucking fascinating. It's one of those things, you know, it's like you got to respect it on a certain level. It's the brilliance of it. And then there's a certain level of balls that takes because you're fucking with your freedom. Anytime you're fucking with taxes, you know what I mean? Fucking with the government. Anytime you're doing that, I mean, you know, what is that? I don't know what the fuck. Is that a federal thing? I guess if you're not paying your federal income tax, yeah, Bill, that would probably be a federal crime. I don't know. I always hear you got to cross state borders. Do you have to like not pay taxes and then leave your state before it becomes federal? I don't know. I don't know these things. But anyways, just the balls that it takes and the, I don't know. I don't like people physically hurting other people, that type of crime. But when there's something like robbing banks or tax evasion or even a good old-fashioned fucking scam, if there's like an amazing level of thought behind it, on some level you got to respect it, I think. You know what I mean? Like I remember a long time ago there was some fucking guy, he figured out how to rob parking meters. And they were allegedly it was impossible to do. So this guy figured out how to fucking do it. It's amazing. And he did this shit. This is back in like the 80s or some shit. This guy figured out how to do it. So it was way, way, way easier to not have everybody breathing down your fucking throat. You know, people be having eggs watching you fucking robbing a parking meter. They didn't have a fucking smartphone on them. They just be sitting there going, look at this fucking guy just... Is that guy robbing a parking meter? Holy shit! The fucking guy just robbed the parking... Did you see that? Anybody see that? That was it. That's all that fucking happened. Rather than some douche sitting there filming you and you're arrested before you even get home. Right? And then the fucking local newscasters, they always got to do some sort of fucking bad pun. You know what I mean? I'll tell you, this guy's life, his freedom is now going to change. You know, they do that. Somehow they get away with that in like fucking newspapers. Like they can have the biggest fucking puns ever and everybody thinks it's great. You know? I don't know. I can't even think of one right now, but whatever. You know, you sit at home and you think about it. You sit at your fucking cubicle instead of doing your goddamn work. You think of one. So anyways, this fucking guy figured out how to do this shit. And of course, the parking meter guards were beside themselves. You know what I mean? It was like one of those sci-fi movies. Or like the Titanic movie. Like, not even God can sink it. That's what they were like. Not even God could get the fucking quarters out of this meter. This meter, right? They were talking all kinds of shit. So this fucking guy figured out how to do it. And you're thinking like, all right, whatever, man. What the fuck are you going to do with that? Well, dude, there's fucking meters all over the city. So this guy, anytime he wanted a drink, if he wanted a fucking sandwich, dude, he had it perfect. It was like his own ATM machine before ATM machines. He'd just walk up, bing, bang, boom. He had a sack of fucking quarters. You go down to the bank. You go, hey, can I get one of some of them roly fucking things there? Right? Yeah, sure. They don't give a shit. Nobody gave a fuck back then. Nobody was paying attention. They were trying to pay attention, but not to that type of shit. So this guy would roll the fucking quarters. You know? Rolls enough quarters. Next thing you know, he gets himself out. How the fuck would you get all those quarters down to a car dealership? I have no fucking idea. Although I talked to some drug dealers about how they fucking, or a guy who knew drug dealers. Let's be honest here, Bill. Let's not act like that news guy saying that you were in the war and then you were in a chopper or some shit next to the chopper and you didn't really fucking see it. Okay, you took a fucking helicopter tour one time. You weren't even in Iraq. Whatever the fuck he said. I don't pay attention to shit. So anyways, I was talking to this guy and basically how back in the day when drug dealers were still driving around in flashy cars, because from what I heard nowadays, they don't even want to attract that level of attention. How it used to be was any cash deal that was over 10 grand had to be fucking reported. So what these drug dealers would do was they would go out and they buy a car worth 9 grand for cash, and then they drive it around for like a fucking week, and then they trade it in for a car worth 16 grand. Maybe get 7 for theirs, And then they throw another fucking 9 at the other car. Now they got a $16,000 car. You drive around for a little bit. You fucking trade it in on a $23,000 car. They give you whatever, and so on and so forth. Until you trade your way all the way up to whatever fucking car you wanted. I just look at that shit. It's like, I mean, that's not the deepest thing, but that's the way my brain would work. I'd be like, well, I guess I got to drive a piece of shit then. What's the point of dealing drugs? Right? Or I'd just say, fuck it. I'm buying a Ferrari and I'm going to drive it until they catch me fucking 3 weeks later. By the way, the Ferrari I like is the Ferrari California. That's the old man one. The fucking GT, the Grand Touring one, right? I don't need to ride around in some Batmobile. Just give me one that's shaped like a fucking Jaguar from back in the day, you know? Or maybe a Toyota Supra. Remember those fucking things from the 80s? I remember this guy loaned me his while he used my truck to move. And I ran and I beat the shit out of his car and he beat the fuck out of my truck. And we both got our cars back and he's smelling rubber. And I'm seeing all kinds of scratches all over my truck. And we just, it's kind of a fair deal, right? And then we both got arrested for drinking and driving months later. But that's a completely different story. I know. I'm all over the map. I'm doing this late night, and I don't want to be doing it right now, but I got shit to do in the morning. So anyways, this fucking guy, you know, if he had half a fucking brain, what you do is you keep your day job, right? You keep your fucking day job, and then, you know, for anything miscellaneous, you just go to the parking meters, right? And what you do is you start storing up on the quarters. Then every once in a while, right, you start washing the money with your fucking cat. I know what you do. You fucking, you go into stores and stuff. Who gives a fuck, right? You just use it to get yourself a better TV. But what does this dope do? He gets fucking greedy. I don't even remember how the fucking story goes. All I know is he just started hitting every fucking goddamn parking meter around. And next thing you know, he's sitting on like a fucking $2 million in quarters, and he ended up getting busted. But there was a part of it, I liked the guy, you know? So anyways, this gets me to the super rich on how, you know, all of that shit about the Panama Papers and all that type of stuff. I was talking to another friend of mine who's a fucking lawyer. And I was like, how does that work? Like, how do you get your money out of the country? And then once it's out of the country, how do you make sure nobody steals it? Like what happened to Johnny Depp's character in Blow. And then once you have it out of the country, how do you get it back in without just getting taxed all over again or busted? And he said, basically, this is it. And he broke the whole fucking thing down, all right? Or as far as I know, he broke an aspect of it down. I know all you guys are sitting there right now going, oh, Jesus, he's going to try to explain. I am. I'm going to try to explain some shit that was just explained to me, and I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about. So let's get rid of one myth right out of the gate. I remember a long time ago, a friend of mine had a fucking landscaping business. And he already had a truck, and he went out and he bought this giant fucking, you know, one of those things with the dual wheels on the back and this fucking giant bed. It looked like you put cattle in it, right? And I was like, holy fuck, man, how much does that thing cost? And, you know, it's like the 80s. It cost like $25,000, which was a lot of fucking money back then, right? For a truck, you know? It's like $10,000 more than you pay. I think $25,000-$30,000 or some shit, right? I was like, holy shit, man, you can afford that? And he was like, yeah, it's a write-off. That's what a lot of dopes say. And it is a write-off. But what they think is that they can write $30,000 off of their taxes. What you can't. What you can do is you can write off. It's a write-off as far as that $30,000 that you just spent on that truck is untaxable. All right? It's sitting in whatever. You made that money. You made $30,000. If it's just sitting there and you don't put it back into play as far as reinvesting into your business, the government will tax you at the end of the year, you know, on that $30,000. And let's say you're in like a fucking, 20% tax bracket, that you'd have to give the government fucking $6,000. Right? That's it. So morons think, oh, I get to write in the end of the year, if I owed $40,000 in taxes and I bought a $30,000 truck, I get to take $30,000 off of my taxes. You wouldn't. You'd just be able to knock off $6,000. Right? And you're not even knocking it off. You're just not getting taxed on that. Does that make sense? Probably doesn't, because I explained it. So anyways, when you have your own business, what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up with as many fucking write-offs as you possibly can. many expenses, everything you possibly can to lower your basic, whatever your income as far as what is going to be taxable. So say you made fucking $100,000, all right? You grossed $100,000. The net is what you're left with after your expenses. You try to fucking come up with as many goddamn expenses as you can to get that $100,000 as far down as zero as possible. Ideally, you wouldn't want to pay any fucking taxes as far as these people look. But the bottom line is you can only do it so much. And if you write off too much, the IRS is going to show up and be like, what's this fucking, $60,000 for fucking cheeseburgers, blah, 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 you tried to write off, and you're going to get busted. All right? So what these fucking super rich people do is the first thing they do is they get the fucking money out of the country because the IRS's jurisdiction doesn't go beyond the borders. So what they do is they just create a company that doesn't exist. It's just on paper. Right? So say you make $100 million, right? What you do is you go to a country that doesn't give a shit about America and lets you use it as a tax shelter. You just come up with some incorporated thing. Like Who Gives a Fuck Inc., right? And then you just have that company bill your company a consulting fee for $100 million or whatever, whatever of the $100 million, 30, 40, 50, whatever you don't want to pay taxes on, whatever. And then you write a check to that company that doesn't exist that's really you. And then you send it out. So now it's out of the fucking country. And then what they do is they open up like 10 other of these fucking shell companies, and they have those other companies build the first company, and then the third one builds the second one, the fourth one, and it's just gone. The money's fucking gone. Now the IRS can come at you and be like, what the fuck did you pay somebody $100 million consulting fee? And then you're telling me you paid somebody $100 million as a consulting fee, and then you just look at him and go, yes. And evidently there's nothing they can fucking do about it. So then I go, all right, so now it's out of the country, and then it's in this other country. How the fuck do you protect it? And he goes, well, those countries where these tax shelters are, they're in on the scam, so you just kick them 10%. Of the $100 million, you give them 10. Here's fucking whatever you can negotiate. We'll just make it easy. Here's $10 million bucks. So I'll give you $10 million rather than giving the government fucking 50, 55, 60 million of that $100 million. I'm still fucking up $45 million. All right. So then I was like, all right. So now, how do you get the money back? Because if you bring the money back, you stick it into the bank, they're going to consider that earned income. Like, where the fuck did you get it? And this guy was like, they bring it back into the country in the form of a loan. Loans aren't taxable, right? Like if you get a fucking loan because you're already paying interest on it and everything, they don't tax you. So they just bring it back in the form of a loan, whatever the fuck you want to do. I want to buy a $10 million house. You have this shell company that's 10 times removed from the one that you paid from the consulting fee, right? And they can't follow the paper trail because it's in a different country, right? You just bring it back into the country in the form of a loan. And then you go buy a fucking house. And I guess, I don't know, you pretend to make payments or the loan is forgiven by this shell company that's still you. I know I just glossed over that. And if anybody has more information on it, I find it absolutely fascinating. There's other ones, they just pretend that that's their main business, that shell company. So they just act like it's doing I don't know. That's as far as I can remember what he told me. And I found that shit absolutely fucking fascinating because at the end of the fucking day, as far as what they're doing, I know they're fucking over you and me because, the school systems go down the shitter because they don't have enough money. There's a lot of potholes. There's all kinds of stuff. You can't take care of homeless people. You can't build another gleaming structure for a fucking sports team, whatever the fuck it is. At the end of the day, as fucked up as that is, these people who are criminals, they're stealing from other criminals. As far as my conspiracy theory goes, the IRS is just a bunch of fucking crooks anyway. So, I mean, it's kind of fascinating watching these two giant, powerful entities fuck with each other. Meanwhile, I'm in the crosshairs, you're in the crosshairs, and we're all paying Elvis taxes. And there goes Hillary Clinton screaming in some Baptist church. Is she talking